somewhere been ungridded?
Now
Yes.
we are.
Morning
Morning.
Morning.
What after Pete?
Afternoon.
or afternoon, whatever it is, yes, of course. Now, I've got a product to show you
Yeah, it's all right. Stay.
who's part Japanese and he likes it. Can you all see that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is pork floss. It's made from pork shoulder. It's cooked, dried and cured, and you keep it in your pantry and you serve it in lettuce leaves or in salad rolls. It's just like pork, but it's pork floss. It's very nice. So there you go. It's very, very yummy. You can buy that at Costco. Today we're making carrot and almond strudel. And the first thing I'm going to do is show you a technique that you may or may not be interested in for cutting onions. I've already cut half of an onion ready for the dish. So as you can see, I've peeled the onion, and it's always best to chop them with one side with a flat surface. So I've already done that to work on a flat bench. Then take it, and with my knife, you cut down towards the back, and see how I've left the root on? That's so it holds it together. If I was slicing the onion, I'd cut that off, I wouldn't bother. But that helps hold the onion together. You slice through it, and then you cut through it the opposite way. And depending on how many cuts you put in as to how fine it is, then you can just and voila, you've got diced onion, just the way you want it without all the hassle. So there you go. Now the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to cook the onions, but as I say in the recipe, you just cook them to sweat them, you don't want them brown. So I do that in a little bit of olive oil, in a pan, on a low heat. So I tip my onions in, and I part cooked it before I add the sage leaves. Now, sometimes in cooking you use fresh herbs, it's just depending. If I was doing a leg of lamb ready for the Weber or the oven or a piece of meat, I'd use fresh herbs. But in this, I've tried fresh herbs, I've tried fresh sage, and actually the dried works better. However, it's good to finish it off with the onions because you want to release the oils because that's been dried. So, and if you want to buy sage, don't try buying it at Christmas time because everybody buys it to make their stuffing for their roast stuffed chickens and stuff. It's very hard to find at Christmas time, so I always stock up before Christmas. So that's the sage. So I'm just going to cook my onions until they're soft without browning them. So that's just starting to warm up now for me. Then in my bowl, I have my carrot, which has been grated in a food processor, the cheese, which I just buy grated, and that's 1 part mozzarella and 1 part tasty. I just find that works. And the almonds. We've also tried this using slithered almonds, and it's not the same. So I buy almonds with the skin on and process them to that sort of consistency in my processor. I just do two. I've doubled the recipe here because I want to put some away in the freezer. They're a favourite dish in our house. Been making these for, I forget how many years. I learned to make them. I was head chef at a health resort in New South Wales where we only did vegetarian and white meats. We did cook no red meats at all. A place called Solar Springs that's still going. And we used to make this dish there with boring regularity. So that's the almond skin on in the food processor, coarsely processed. So this has started to sizzle. So I'll just make sure it doesn't sizzle too much, making sure the oil gets on all the onions. I'm going to throw the sage in now. I'm going to get a little bit more sage. I don't think I've got enough. And into the pantry. Usually I make my own pastry too, but I can't be bothered making puff pastry. I think the last time I made puff pastry, I was still training at William Englis in the city back in the day, back in the 70s, when I was much younger and sillier. Younger anyway. I don't think I'm any less silly now. So while that's cooking, I'll get my puff pastry out of the fridge. Now the other thing I do is, as I'm making this, as I roll each one up, which I'll show you, I keep them in the fridge because if the kitchen gets a bit warm, the pastry gets a little bit out of hand and makes it harder to cut, and it just goes a bit funny. So I'll be making them as I roll them up, put them in the fridge. Then I'll cut some, put them in the oven, and you can see what they look like and what they taste like later on. Well, you won't get to see what they taste like. I'll have to tell you, and you'll have to take my word for it. Oh, the smell, sage. Oh, sage and onion. Oh, beautiful. Right, that's enough now. I'll just let the residual heat in the pan finish that off. Now the next bit can be tricky and you've got to be a bit careful. So I put the hot onions, I don't let them cool. They go straight into the mix that I showed you. And what I do is, I start with a spoon, and you've got to be careful here because the onions are really hot. But then I get my hands into it. Because what you want to do is squeeze it together so that you're actually starting to melt the cheese so the mixture sticks together and you get the sort of texture that you want. Now I have washed my hands. I always wash my hands before I pick the nose. That's a health tip for you. You want to tuck away, remember. And you end up with the mixture looking like that. That's what it needs to look like. Okay, now the fun part. Oh, come on, there you go. Take the sticky bits off the pastry, grab a spoon, and I start off by just putting it in the middle, and I just guess how much I want. And then using a palette knife, I press it out, and that's one of the reasons why you want to squash it together. It's just more manageable if you don't have the hot onions melt the cheese. The mixture goes everywhere and you make a mess. And you don't want to be doing that. Now I leave space around the ends. I don't know how much it is. Probably a half a matchstick. Space around the sides. I don't worry about the ends too much. And then I just take it and turn it around so you can see a bit better probably. Can you see that okay? Take it and you just roll it gently but firmly. Push the ends in. I sometimes tidy the ends up, just take it off the ends, which I know others tell me is wasteful, but it's okay. And then what I do is I stick that in the fridge on a wooden board. It's in the fridge, ready for while I make the next one. So you just keep doing that till all your pastry's gone. I won't do it all because otherwise we'll be here all afternoon and I'm sure you've got other things and better things to do. Watch me gallivant around the kitchen. So I'll make one more. I'll make the rest up later. I've got my oven preheated to about 220, 240. I've just got a fan forced electric oven. Again, spread the mixture out, leaving a bit of gap at the end because you don't want it going everywhere. I'd rather trim a bit of the pastry off. Let it go everywhere, and roll it like so. Ends off. Now, another trick is where I remember where I've left my trays. I know I use, I go through rolls and stuff. I'll buy the 30 or 50 metre roll of parchment paper or baking paper. I always brush it with a bit of water. I do that when I'm making my bread and my bagels and all that sort of stuff as well. Just adds another. And then, also I did all the preparation last night because I had to go out today to see some people. And I didn't want to get back and rush. Just an egg wash, just a beaten up egg. brush the whole thing, just gently. And then what I do is I cut it in half, and then I cut each section in 3. So I get 6 out of 1 roll. So cut it in half, and then just cut each half in thirds. Set it on the tray flat, like that. A bit of gap between them, so that the heat gets around them evenly. The other one out of the fridge. Here's one I made earlier. Egg wash. Sometimes you can put egg with the milk. I don't bother. I just, bit of milk with the egg, but I don't bother. And again, in half, and then each half in thirds. Squeeze it. On the tray. So that's what they look like. That's what a piece of raw looks like. So it's carrot, almond, sage and onions, and it is yummy, and into the oven they go. Preheat the oven just until they're nice and brown and crispy. And then the usual thing that you do, you put them on a tray, let them cool. They freeze well. They keep for a few days in the fridge. And they're nice cold, or they're nice hot. Now I'm going to look at the chats, see if there's any questions. So there we go.
Yep, pretty good.
Yeah, and they're really delicious. The other recipe I have that's a little bit similar is you use walnuts, cashews, carrot, cooked brown rice, and some carrot and some other spices, and Worcestershire sauce goes in them, and you make rissoles out of them. And they because they've got nuts in them, and they smell just like meat when you're cooking them because they've got protein in them. So
How long, Bronwyn would like to know how long approximately is just until they're done?
Oh, probably 20 minutes. I was going to cook some last night to show you, but did I show you last time? Did I show you that I had some in the fridge? Did I show you?
Yeah.
No. Okay. And what I'll do is when those are done, I'll take a photo of them and send it to you, Sarah, and you can post it, unless you've already got one. But
that's perfect. Yeah, I do not have a current photo to put on the blog.
Yep. Okay, I'll do that. So that's it, carrot and almond strudel. Really nice with a salad, really nice by themselves. And if you ever get someone, back in the day, if someone came to your house and they were vegetarian and you were having a roast, people often used to serve them up veggies, or they make a boring vegetable lasagna. And vegetable lasagna can be really nice. Or they do your pasta, whereas now there's so many more. There's some brilliant books out there. There's a New Zealand woman called Alice Holst. Her and her son have written a book called Meals Without Meat that have some brilliant vegetarian recipes in them. I actually cooked at a camp last year for a bunch of high school age kids. There were, I think, 8 vegetarians when we started, and I think most of them were vegetarians when we were finished because they liked the vegetarian food that I made, everything from scratch for them. Because they'd never had such variety before. I made a caramelised onion and mushroom tart for them, made carrot and almond strudel. I can't remember what other things I made, but yeah. So if you've got someone coming around, and when Ruth and I had the catering business, we'd ask the question, how many people are vegetarian? So we're talking 30 plus years ago, and people, this is their response, no, everybody's normal. And we'd say, what about our Aunt Margaret, who you've never seen before, who could have cancer and is trying to eat a healthy diet? How do you know that she's not vegetarian? So we always used to make vegetarian meals, and sure as eggs, we'd always find they were vegetarians, always. But they were the forgotten ones. Everybody just thought it was a bit of a joke.
What's the difference between a vegetarian and a vegan?
A vegan often won't eat cheese or eggs, anything that's involved.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. And then you do get vegetarians who will eat white meat and who will eat fish. So it just depends. You've got to ask each person. So I've got friends, there's 4 kids in the family, 3 kids, and Dad all eat meat. Mum's a nurse at Royal Melbourne Hospital. She's vegetarian. So whenever we cook for them, we always make sure that we include a vegetarian dish for her.
Beverly, do you have a question?
I do.
I missed out on the ingredients. I know what's in it, but I don't know how many and how much. How many onions?
I used a whole medium-sized brown onion.
Okay. How many carrots?
Carrots, about 2 cups of grated carrots.
And cheese?
A cup of tasty and a cup of mozzarella.
And almonds?
A cup. Everything's a cup.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I missed all that.
Okay. Yep.
That's okay. I just put it in the chat.
Yeah.
And Peter, can I ask?
Yes.
You went to the cupboard to get something else you added. What was it?
Sage, wasn't it?
I just added some more sage because I hadn't had enough sage. I can sort of just tell, you know what it's like when you've made something for a long time, you look at it and go, yeah, no, that's not enough.
Yeah.
There's some things you can get away. This is one of those recipes you just know. I just know when looking at it and going, yeah, everything's right. But when you make bread, you can't. So, for example, when you make sourdough, if you err from the recipe and try and rush it, you end up with horrible bread. There's just some things you can't rush. It's like making good stock. Good stock takes 12 hours just to make the stock. There's no shortcut apart from using powdered stock. There's just no shortcut. It doesn't work.
You can buy it in a box, Peter.
Yeah, I know. I buy it if I'm doing a special meal. I go to the butcher and get veal bones and marrow bones, and I brown them, and I can't help myself. I'll leave it on the stove overnight.
Peter?
Yes.
Instead of using a pastry, if you're gluten-free, what could you use instead? Is there any alternative?
Look, I haven't kept up with the gluten-free stuff, but I imagine if you buy a gluten-free pastry,
There is gluten-free puff pastry now that you can pre-buy.
You just need a bank loan.
Oh, right.
I'm going to stop recording now. We'll keep asking questions and things, but thank you. Go ahead and stay, and I'm just going to stop recording.